Hello, my name is Christopher Skack, and I'm here today to show you the new synchronization hub for our AWG products. This particular synchronization hub will allow the synchronization of up to 4 AWGs simultaneously. This gives you the capability of synchronizing all of the outputs of each individual AWG such that they all coincide with the clocks and the trigger requirements for the application. So all of the AWGs will fire at the same time. This is very critical for many applications that require more than one channel or 2 channels or up to 8 channels, depending on if you have a 2-channel AWG or a single-channel AWG. Basically, the configuration is, from the front panel here, we just have the calibration cables connected from the ports of the sync hub to each of the channels of the AWG, and this is just used for calibration. So once you've done the calibration, you can remove these cables, and there's really nothing else required except for running your application. So it's very simple, doesn't require an oscilloscope in order to do the calibration, doesn't require any other external devices. From the rear of the instrument, you can see that we have the connections required here from each AWG to the slave or to the sync hub here. So our master is the bottom one here, is going to be used to provide the clock source from the master to the sync hub, and then the clock is then fed to each of the AWGs individually through the clock input. These are communication and trigger cables, and that's really all that's required. You also have the capability in the sync hub itself to have the trigger inputs, and then we also have the pattern jump inputs too for the trigger circuitry, such that basically you're controlling it all from the master. And so if you get a trigger and you want to fire all AWGs, they're all fired basically at the same time. So this is basically just the configuration, very simple configuration, and we'll go into the UI and show you how to set everything up through the interface. So in order to use the sync hub, let's first look at a slave unit. So this is the UI for a slave, or for one of the AWGs, and for this particular case we're going to set it up as a slave. So we go under the setup menu, and you'll see that there's a sync selection, and then under the sync selection, it's very simple. I'm just going to enable it, and it will, if nothing else is connected, it'll give you a prompt of either a master or a slave. I have this one already configured to be a slave. So basically that's all you have to do on your slave. So if we switch over to the master box, under the setup again under sync, you'll see that we have a little bit more options available when we've configured one as a master. So basically we can go in and select the ports that are defined coming from the front of the sync hub, going to the individual AWGs. I've got 3 AWGs, so I'm only going to use these 3 ports. Now you notice that the calibration has been done previously, and it did pass. If for some reason the temperature changes on any of the AWG units, it'll prompt you and say that you need to adjust. This doesn't require complete calibration, it's just adjusting for the temperature variation, so it's much faster than doing the full calibration. To do the full calibration, this is what you'd want to do at the very beginning after you've got all the cables set up and have the ports identified. You would run the D-skew calibration. Now this will take up to 15 minutes. Once you've done the calibration though, you should not have to repeat this process, and like I said, unless you change the configuration drastically. Basically that's the only time you should have to do a D-skew calibration again. Now this D-skew calibration doesn't require an oscilloscope. Basically it just requires the configuration, no connections to the front of the AWG are required, except for going from the output of the AWG into the front panel of the sync hub. And this should be done with the precision cables that are provided with the sync hub. So basically that's the whole process. Once you've done this calibration, then you can change sample rate, you can power down the units and then power them back up again, and they will continually be synchronized. If you're using a trigger, basically the master controls the trigger selections. So if you're using the sequencer and you want to make sure that all of the sequences from the individual AWGs are triggered at the same time, the trigger would go into the sync hub, but the master controls all of the settings required for the sample rate, basically everything that except for loading the waveforms. You can load individual waveforms per AWG, but as far as running the actual outputs go, this would be run from the master. So once you've started the output, it will synchronize the rest of the AWGs.
Find out more at Vicom's website.